So today I'm going to try and keep this one short. I did it earlier and then I got mad at someone and told them to go to hell. So I'm going to do this one again. So in this one, we're going to be talking about cheating, and the title is So You Cheated. Forgive yourself. Stop explaining. Forgive yourself and move on. The thing that comes up with cheating, it's not something that I've ever experienced or even done. I have a very emotionally perceptive mind, so I can tell if the partner that I'm with is philandering or talking to other people, and generally I can pretend like I don't pick up on it. And that's why I tend to have very little empathy for people that are cheated on and say, well, I didn't know. I saw no signs. I'm like, you can't tell the sky's blue? Like, what the hell is your problem? So pardon me if I don't have empathy for the victims of cheating. But in this video, I'm speaking to people who have been identified as cheaters, those who have been adulterers or are guilty of sinning in that sort of way. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment below, all that stuff. This is going to be released later on, so I don't care. There's no one in the chat right now. There's one person. That's nice. Make sure you drop a like if there's something that pertains to you. So cheating for a geopolitical Christian is not a moral issue. For mainstream Christians, cheating is a moral issue because they cite one of the commandments that says, thou shalt not commit adultery. And then in the New Testament, Jesus reiterates that by saying, even if you looked upon a woman lustfully, you are committing adultery. And I would agree with Jesus. I always do, because I think he's the greatest. And I would agree with the Deuteronomical laws and the Decalogue when it comes to laws of fidelity. However, for a geopolitical Christian, morality and moralism are not based on social norms. They are based on an indwelling law of God that's built into the very structure of our nature, our nature as human beings. And so cheating is not a moral issue for geopolitical Christians. It's more a lifestyle issue. It's more an issue of how much pleasure can you incorporate into your life. So if you are cheating, there's mental energy, there's emotional energy, there's spiritual energy that is being improperly applied. And that takes away from the pleasure, the power, the purpose, prosperity, and purity of your life that God has promised us as his children. So it's not an issue of you being a bad, dirty, evil person. It's an issue of you taking and making decisions that do not benefit you in the long run. Now, if you have a conversation with your wife or your husband, and you say, these are my proclivities. I tend to philander. I tend to go outside of relationships. That's my tendency. And you don't judge yourself for it. You say, this is my tendency. And you say that on the outset, even at the risk of you losing that relationship, we would not call that cheating at all. We would call that an honest distinction, an honest description of who you are and where you are. And you are giving the people that you're speaking to the opportunity to make a decision. And that's why, in my opinion, but also from a geopolitical Christian perspective, cheating can be so hurtful and destructive, as we do our best not to practice that. Not because we want to be good moral people. It has nothing to do with morality. It has to do with the ease and the pleasure and the flow of our lives. And so if a person, like every single woman that I meet, that if I intend to, and I don't date right now, because I'm trying to, hey, Two Duels, welcome, welcome, welcome. I saw a comment and I was just staying on my flow. Welcome, welcome, talking about cheating. And if you've been cheated on, let me know in the comment section below. Oh, Noah, welcome back. Noah has a great day. What's up, bro? And so welcome, welcome. Talking about cheating now. And this video is about those who have cheated and have been marginalized or attacked by society because they have committed the great offense of infidelity. So in this one, we're just talking about why cheating is not a moral issue for geopolitical Christians. It's more of a self-care issue. I think it's very important to let your partner know, even at the risk of the relationship, what your intentions are. Why? Because cheating has externalities. So if you are living with a person and intimate with them sexually, and then you are also sharing yourself with other people, there's a possibility of cross-contamination. You can pass diseases on to them. You can endanger their life, theoretically. So it's important to let them know what's up. Now, in some relationships, there's this, what they call, it's basically when you get into a relationship and you let people know, look, these are my parameters, and you don't explain anything outside of that. Some people do that. They say, look, I'm open to do whatever I do. and I don't want you asking questions about it. And that person is taking a risk by getting in that relationship. But anyway, in this video, we're actually talking about people who have cheated and have a lot of guilt about it, a lot of shame about it. And I want to let you know how Jesus dealt with cheating, how he dealt with adultery, and begin to treat yourself the way Jesus did, because Jesus was morally perfect, but he was also human, and he also came here to show us that our relationship with God is more important than our morality. So in this one, I want to make it clear that the truth about cheating is that it is an unmet intimacy need. This is when someone has a need for intimacy and it is not being met. Now, however that looks for you. Now, the unmet intimacy need has nothing to do with your partner. Pardon me. If your partner is not able to fulfill your intimacy needs, it has nothing to do with your partner. It has everything to do with you. So, you don't have to explain if you find yourself in a position where you've cheated or you've been unfaithful. You do not have to explain. An intimacy need that you had was not fulfilled. And it is not the responsibility of your wife or your husband to fulfill that intimacy need. It is your responsibility. And I learned that when I was in a conversation with my ex-wife for 8 years by this point about having extramarital relationships, because the sexual life for us was always disjointed. It never seemed to click. And I was a virgin when I met her, so I didn't really know any better, but I had friends and buddies and stuff and girls that I knew, and they were like, yeah, our sex life is like this. And I was always like, oh, my sex life was like this. I wasn't comparing myself, but I thought, I thought there's supposed to be like connection, and there's supposed to be like some sort of like link up between the two people, but I never experienced that. And so I went to therapists and did all this stuff. Long story short, it was an 8-year journey. Talked to my ex and said, my wife at the time, and said, look, I'm going to go see a surrogate. And a surrogate is a woman that is a therapist who's trained. She's a sexuological body worker, and she knows how to work with clients through their sexual issues. So I went and talked with this woman, developed a relationship over a year, and then finally decided I was going to go see her. And the day that I was going to go see her, after a year of building a relationship, building trust and rapport, my wife at the time really lost her shit. She was like, no, you can't do that. It's awful. She just really lost it. She was very upset, even though she knew about this beforehand and seemed to be approving of it beforehand. And so I was broken by that. It was like somebody had just shot an arrow through my chest. And I was just like, I thought we were on the same page about this, but clearly we were not. And so I realized as I was sitting in the car after this meltdown that my wife had in front of me, I realized I was like, oh, what I need in the adult relationship has nothing to do with her. That's not her responsibility. That's my responsibility. I have to fulfill that need. I have to make sure that need is fulfilled and met. And so when it comes to infidelity, big quotes, often it's an unmet intimacy need. And intimacy does not just refer to sex. It refers to communication. It refers to emotional connection. It refers to a physical affection as well. So it's not just the act of copulation or intercourse. There's an entire area around it. So always remember that the unmet intimacy need is your responsibility. It's not the responsibility of your partner. So when you go out of the relationship, don't blame yourself or beat yourself up. Take responsibility. Be accountable to yourself, not to your partner or to your society or to your kids or anything like that, because it's going to keep you in a cycle, because people are ignorant. They judge and they demonize people who have been unfaithful. Big quotes. Okay. Let's jump in the chats real quick. Red one, I can see why she would be upset over that. All right, you're back. I gave you 24 hours, but I'll let you stay if you are able to follow. Anyway, so masochism, a lot of people that are unfaithful, and this is not infidelity necessarily. If you are speaking to a person and saying, hey, look, this is what I plan to do. These are my plans as far as intimacy in the relationship. These are my needs. Because some people have far greater intimacy than others, needs than others. Some guys that are especially very ambitious men tend to have very high sex drives, and their wives can only keep up for a limited a finite amount of time. They can only keep up for like the first 2 to 5 years of the marriage. And after they're just like, I cannot do this. I need to go down to once a week or whatever. And it's not that they don't love them anymore. They don't want to be intimate. They just don't have the same drive. And it could be the fact that they have children. There are a lot of factors that go into place. You can look it up. You can talk to a therapist. You can find these things out on yourself. But for a lot of men and women that are unfaithful, what they are actually deeply addicted to or attached to is a masochistic, self-flagellating pattern. So what happens is they go out and they cheat, and then they come back, I'm so sorry, and then they wait for their partner to lose her shit or lose his shit and get mad and then distance and then go through all the, because they get a rise from that. So there's some people that cheat and they want to be caught. They want to be vilified and tarred and feathered, metaphorically, right? Because they just have that masochistic tendency. Nothing wrong with that, but that is a pattern. And you may have that pattern, and that's another reason why you don't want to, treat yourself very poorly, because it's a pattern. If you recognize the pattern, you can actually get help and get over it. Most people actually are unfaithful. Like Jesus said, I like how Jesus fixed the whole thing about adultery. He was like, listen, even if you're looking at a woman lustfully, you're committing adultery. Let's be honest. Okay. And so we have to just be clear about that. Okay. Historically, cheating has been dealt with quite harshly, and there are good reasons for this. The death penalty was often the reason, or was often the punishment for cheating. Dismemberment, sometimes they would cut body members off, typically of females, like nose, breast, or something like that. It's awful. It was understood why. They wanted to make an example of people who were unfaithful. What happened is they were doing this because infidelity endangered society and children. Infidelity led to disharmony within society, men fighting over women, things like that. And it also put children in a precarious situation, because if a woman was unfaithful, the child of that unfaithful union would be a bastard without a father. And the thing about children is that they can shape and mold themselves to look like the parents, even if they're adopted. You can just go online and look at all the adopted people who look exactly like their adopted parents, even though they share absolutely no biological material. So men were very cautious about raising the offspring of other men. They don't want to do that, which makes sense, right? Why would you raise your competitor's offspring? You want to spread your genetic progeny, not his. And so, that's sort of how that was done. So society dealt very harshly with infidelity. So that's kind of the history behind it. A lot of people are masochistic, so they like to get caught cheating. They want to be vilified and treated poorly. And sometimes, I think in a lot of cases, a lot of people just have an unmet intimacy need. Before I get into the solutions, I'm going to jump in the chat and let's see if Red One Baron, okay. So we're going to read some of your comments. Actually, I'll read them before I put them out there. All right. Okay. All right. This person's just going to... Okay. Not even going to give them time. All right. So let's just... Let's do this. Let's see what happens. Awesome. Gone. And let's do this. Let's just do this. Boom. All right. So anyway, we don't give attention to things that are worthless. All right. So there's that history and there's that pattern. A lot of people, they have intimacy needs. They're legitimate. And why would you ever stay in a 20, 30, 40, 50-year marriage and your intimacy needs are not met? And then you meet someone who you click with, you're more mature, you know yourself better, and you know that you're a better match for this person. And then you realize, oh, this is what intimacy is supposed to feel like. I'm using appropriate terms, but not being too explicit, because there are children like Red Baron that are on here. I think that's an underage person. So, I'm just trying to keep it clean here, because I don't want to label my videos as 18 plus. Because I think that's stupid. But anyway, so there are people that have genuine unmet intimacy needs. and you might have gotten stuck in a marriage, you might have gotten stuck in a relationship that was not compatible for you, that was destructive to your intimacy needs. Why would you go your entire human life without your intimacy needs being met and go to a pastor every week and talk about, oh, I'm praying for it to work out? 30, 40 years pass, and now your body's falling apart. And why would you do that? Don't do that. Okay? It's better for you to cheat than it is to stay in a marriage for 40 years and not have your intimacy needs and go to your grave a completely unfulfilled person. And it makes no sense. That's stupid. And Jesus wouldn't want you to do that. So anyway, this is how Jesus dealt with adultery. Okay? And Jesus is a better example than the church, than the Bible, than the, not the Bible, but the Ten Commandments, Moses on. Jesus is better because he's a fulfillment of the law. So in John 8, 1 through 11, he's dealing with the woman that was dragged out. Imagine you're in the middle of an intimate act and you're being dragged as a woman out into the Mountain of Olives by the Pharisees, the moralist men of the church. And they're saying, we need to stone this woman to death, Jesus. How about you join us? And Jesus ignored them. He wrote their sins in the sand until they all walked away, from the eldest to the youngest. And when he looked up, because he ignored them as they were accusing her and saying all these terrible things about her, and he didn't even hear the sins that they were saying that she committed. He didn't even listen. He completely ignored that. That is how our God loves us. Our God does not hear the accusations of the devil, of Satan, of the church, of your family, of your ex, of the persons that you've hurt in the past. God doesn't hear any of that. God sees you as his perfect, pure child. And so Jesus looked up and he said to her, woman, where are your accusers? And she said, they're gone. I don't see them. And Jesus said, so, okay. You're basically free to go. Don't sin anymore. It's that simple. All right. I'm not gonna judge you. I'm not gonna hold anything against you. Go, be free. You're fine. That's how God sees us. And that's how God deals with adultery. He doesn't beat people up. That's society. People are afraid of adultery. Okay. And I get it. It makes sense. But at the same time, there's ways to deal with it. The second thing that you can do is look at Christ, how he dealt with it in Matthew 7, verse 1 through 3. He said, don't judge others. Even if you have cheated, don't judge yourself and don't judge other people who've done it. Often the people that are most judgmental of cheaters and those who are unfaithful are cheating themselves. And so if you stop judging other people who've cheated and stop judging yourself for cheating, you remove yourself from the pattern of infidelity and you're able to live a life of righteousness. Okay. And now that does not mean that you will not philander. You won't have other partners. But what that means is you're going to do a better job of communicating that up front and letting your partners, your wife or your husband or your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever you're with say, listen, I have this pattern and I do not intend to stay in a relationship where my intimacy needs are not met. I will leave. I will go find intimacy where it is provided. And if you can do that on the outset, at least that person can make a decision for themselves. If they stay, it's on them. It's not on you. You don't have to carry that weight. The third thing you can do is to detach from the identity of a cheater. When you call yourself a cheater, you are identifying yourself with that pattern, and you are therefore perpetuating that identity in yourself. Think about a child. If they put on the policeman outfit and they run around, they feel like a policeman and they act like a policeman. They go and they tell people, don't park. They do all the childish things. Well, if you call yourself a cheater because your parents, your society, your ex, whatever calls you a cheater, then you are going to perpetuate that identity. You're going to do the things that a cheater would do. And so when you remove yourself from that identity, you are allowing yourself to take on new qualities and also be very forthright about who you are and what you want in relationships. That's the third thing. The fourth thing is, if you have been unfaithful or if you've philandered, do not ever explain yourself. If you're a man, you're a woman, whatever, don't ever explain yourself. And they know statistically, if women cheat, the relationship's over. Men can cheat and cheat and cheat and cheat and cheat and cheat and still love their wife, still go to work for her, still give her his check, still be there for his kids, still love them with all of his heart. And he can have 28, 30 different women. I know that for a fact because so many men in my grandfather's generations did that, and they were amazing fathers, okay? They stayed with their families. They provided for their families. They went to the grave with their wives loving and respecting them. So it can be done for men. Women is a little bit harder, okay? And so just keep that in mind. But never explain yourself. You do not have to justify your needs for intimacy, especially when you lay it out in the beginning of the relationship. Hey, look, I have certain intimacy needs. When I am intimate with my adult partner, right? And I hate to use that word. So my wife or my husband or my girlfriend or my boyfriend, my spouse or whatever, there's certain things I need. And if I don't get those in the relationship, I will do everything I can to make sure that I do my part to get them. Whether that means going to therapy, communicating about it, talking to professionals about it, considering that maybe my partner's going through a thing right now. But if I don't get those needs met in the relationship, I will look outside. And I'm just making that clear. If there are children present, I'm not going to leave you because of that. I will have a mistress. I will have an ethical harlot that I'll go to, but I will go outside. And this is something that I did my best in my younger years to communicate. I didn't have the confidence and the clarity that I have now as a man, as an adult. And this is what I will do with future relationships when I'm ready for that, when I want that. But as men specifically and especially, we have to lay down the law immediately. And you got to live up to it too. You can't say, if I don't get the intimacy needs that I need, then I will go out and get my needs met. And then when you're with your wife, not look at other attractive women. Now, of course, there's a critical mass point. You don't go and oogle at other women. Like if a girl walks by that's dressed like a total harlot with all of her body parts available and visible, you're not going to go, you don't do that. That's just disrespectful to yourself as a man. But if you see an attractive woman that's giving you energy and you're with your woman while it's happening, don't pretend like it's not happening. Like, you see that? Hey, she likes what she sees, like, or whatever you say, however you say it. But just be clear, be straightforward, and be very direct about it. All right. And then finally, as we get to the end, explaining perpetuates the cycle. It adds to the drama of the relationship. Explaining also tells the person that was hurt by your actions that they should forgive you. This is why, let me apologize. Let me give you my reason for it. No, don't. You made a decision. Respect your decision. Even if it was a wrong decision, you're going to learn. You're going to get better. And Jesus is not going to beat the hell out of you. Like, Jesus is like, yo, just relax. I will get you better. I will help you. I will either find you a better intimacy partner, a wife, a spouse, a husband, or whatever, or I will help you to really appreciate the sanctity of the marriage, whatever relationship that you're currently in. Okay? So there's that. And those are the solutions. Real quickly again. So remember that Christ did not see the sin. He saw the individual, and he calls us to not see our sins and to move beyond them. Second of all, don't judge yourself or others. When you judge yourself and others, you keep yourself in the cycle. You also ignore the issues that need to be resolved. Third, detach from the identity of a cheater. Fourth, don't explain yourself. It just perpetuates the drama cycle, and it gives people a reason to hate you. And it also tells them, you were hurt by my actions, now you need to forgive me. No, they don't need to forgive you. That's between them and God. Okay? Let's jump in the chat real quick. All right, Luke 2. You have to meet each other's needs. Most will leave if there's no equality. Equality is, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Luke 2. But equality is a false doctrine for a geopolitical Christian, because equality doesn't exist anywhere in nature. Your right hand and your left hand are not equal. They are one. Man and woman, when they're in a relationship, they're not equal. They are one. They're one body. And so you can never expect your right hand to do what the left hand does, or vice versa. But you're right when it comes to, no, I take that back. We are not here to meet each other's needs. We are here to meet our own needs. Again, from the geopolitical Christian perspective. Now, if you're a religious Christian mainstream, what you're saying is 100% right. But this is a geopolitical Christian perspective channel. We're about Apex Human Awakening. So you're 100% right for mainstream religious Christians. But here at Apex Human Awakening, we are not here to meet anybody's needs at all. At all. We are only here to meet our own individual needs, point blank. Unless it comes to the needs of our children, like our little, lovely, blessed children. Those are the only people whose needs we will meet, because those are the only people that God has entrusted to us. But I'm not here to meet my wife's needs. I am here to fulfill my identity as a husband. There's a very difference. I know it's a juxtaposition, or it's kind of a semantics battle, but we are not here to meet anyone's needs but our own. And so I get where you're coming from, but that's a religious, moralist Christian point of view, and I do not share that. But I do thank you for putting that comment in. All right, so finally, meeting the intimacy needs. like I said, look, you may have married a woman who does not remember some sort of childhood sexual trauma or something like that. And you're about 2 years in the marriage and all of a sudden it comes back up because you guys tried some new thing in the bedroom. And now for the next 5, 6, 7 months, a year, she's not as intimate as she was prior to that. And so it's not her responsibility to meet your sexual needs. She needs to go and talk to a therapist and get that taken care of. She needs to work through that on her own. That is her responsibility to herself, not to you. And as a man, as a husband, it is your responsibility to understand that, be as empathetic as you can be as loving as you can, be supportive as much as possible, because in so doing, you are ensuring a harmonious future for yourself. We are very selfish here. I mean, rational selfish is one of the 4 principal foundations of geopolitical Christianity. And we cannot move forward successfully without that sort of selfishness. And so if she's having her issues, you just go back to your point and say, hey, look, I have intimacy needs that I will have met. I will not require you to meet those intimacy needs. I require myself to meet those intimacy needs. And if that means consulting an ethical harlot, a mistress, a gentleman's club, whatever, I will make sure those needs are met. That's my responsibility as a man. All right. And that way, your wife can get the support she needs. And I know multiple women who've gone through that, where they've been like, I cannot meet my husband's needs. He goes and get it done. There are entire cultures that are that way. Look at Japanese culture. Japanese women are like, yeah, I want my husband to go to a geisha or whatever they call them over there, right? Because that takes pressure off of me. Like, they are explicitly that way. A lot of cultures are that way. A lot of women get it. Anyway, get back into the, then I'm losing light, but I'm going to jump out of here. Tom, did you search up Patrick? No, bro. I'm too busy, bro. I will eventually do it. I keep writing in my notes because I'm so focused. I'm a very focused person. When it comes, I weave like our beloved Donald Trump, but I'm very focused on my life mission and path. And anytime I'm online, I am doing research or studying stuff or learning from other people who do things better than me. So Patrick Beasley is eventually going to get taken care of. So pardon me. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. All right. And then finally, if you do have an instance where you have committed adultery, big quotes. And by the way, let's be honest. If you've looked at adult content, you've committed adultery. If you've lusted in a woman on your heart and you've said it to no one, you've committed adultery ultimately. And there's different layers to it, right? But if you've done that, at some point, you've got to move on. If you stay in that relationship and there's hurt and there's pain and there's distrust, that's stagnation. It keeps you in the cycle. And God does not want us to be in a suffering cycle of stupidity. God wants us to move on and not suffer and not be stupid, right? So you have to move on, get out of that marriage. Now, if there are children involved, there's a whole nother approach that I highly recommend. And I would say if there's children involved, do everything you can to stay. If you can maintain the harmony, because it's just, if you're a male, the children will be given to the female, and it's just a downhill journey from there. And if you have a daughter, you're gonna have to do everything you can to be supportive of her, because she's likely gonna take her mom's. It gets messy. So if you can stay and have like a harlot on the side, a mistress, even if you have unexpressed infidelity, then do that. But you've got to think about yourself in the long run. And the care of your children is the care of yourself, because they're an extension of you. Self-transcendence is another pillar of geopolitical Christianity. The way that we can be most selfish is by taking care of those that are part of us. So it's like, I'm not responsible to those people, I'm responsible to myself. And by taking care of them, I'm taking care of myself. Now, if they no longer are of value to me, I don't take care of them anymore, and I still take care of myself. So that's, again, a geopolitical Christian perspective. My old videos go over it. All right, in conclusion, before you even get into a long-term relationship, make sure you both match. You've got to make sure that you are compatible with this person. And look, I get it. I'm losing light here, but I get it. We grow and mature over time. We don't stay the same. But that's why it's so important for men especially. Do not get into an LTR until you're probably in your 30s, because you don't know yourself. When we're young and we're men, we're young, dumb, and full of cum. We're chasing and we want to sow our wild oats. And it's best for you to get into an LTR or a long-term relationship when you're in your 30s, when you got your money right, when you got your mind right, you got your spirit right, you got your relationship with God right. And then you're clear-headed. And it's also much easier to be monogamous once you've sowed all your wild oats and you've hit everything you wanted to hit, you know. But if you, you know, if you are pursuing a relationship, you really love this woman, and you want to wake up every day and be proud of yourself. And so that means you owe it to yourself to be the best man that you can be. It has nothing to do with taking care of her. It has everything to do with taking care of you. Because at the end of the day, when you draw your last breath, you got to ask yourself, was I the man that God made me to be in that life? And if you weren't, that's hell. That's hell. You're still going to go to heaven, but that's hell. All right. So let me read this because I am losing light. All right. I got to go put my lights on. All right. So real quickly. So Luke 2. I guess that makes sense given all the Bible quotes that place women as property and below men. Luke 2. Yeah, sounds like very isolated bubble perspective. It is. It's a top 1% perspective, Luke. It's not for the masses. It's for the top 1% of people that are moving into the golden age. Everyone else is going to be kind of recycled out. And we are the leading edge of, we're the apex of the community. That's why the apex human awakening. That's what it's all about. So yeah, women have never been property in the Bible. That's a poor translation that was based on a medieval European perspective. The Bible, when it speaks of women, it's actually speaking of the inner self. It's not actually speaking of physical women, because God knows you can't tell a woman to be silent. That's stupid. Women, God gave women the command of language. Like, that's dumb. Anybody who doesn't understand like life and hasn't lived long enough to know that the Bible is written esoterically and allegorically would think that Paul says, you know, women should be silent in the sanctuary. And that's what he means. He means go tell women who talk all the time to shut up. Have you ever tried that? Yeah, you haven't because you're still alive, right? So, yeah, when you read the Bible, you have to read it the way an adult does. And that's what the geopolitical Christian perspective does. It removes the kindergarten perspective on the Bible and says, okay, how does this work in the real world? Okay, we put aside the talking snakes and the boats full of animals, which may or may not have existed. I leave room for that. But we say, how can this apply to real life here and now? And then we go back to the people who wrote it and talked about it, like Philo of Alexandria, the one who actually helped us to understand the link between ancient Greeks and the Hebrews and modern day Judaism, which led to Christianity. So again, it's a scholarly approach, even though I'm not a biblical scholar. And it is very, very niche, very niche, very niche. It is an isolated bubble. And, but, you know, look, at one point, humans that could harness the power of electricity were an isolated bubble. Humans that could read were an isolated bubble. Humans that could use technology were an isolated bubble. That's what we are, an isolated bubble of apex humans. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that. If you have cheated on someone, don't beat yourself up. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge others. Allow Christ to do exactly what he did with the woman caught in adultery. He saved her from her accusers, who were all of the men, the Pharisees, for those of you who can read the Bible, the moralists, and he drove them away without saying a word. He ignored their accusations. He ignored their inferiority and stupidity. And he said, where are your accusers to this woman? He said, where are your accusers? Because he drove them away by just ignoring them. So it's a great lesson for me. All right. So anyway, anybody, thank you guys for the comments. Thank you for the participation. I will read this last one by Tool. Nah, dude, Leviticus 27, verse 4, for a female, set her value at 30 shekels. Well, what would be the monetary value of 30 shekels today? And let's see, Luke Tool, if you can find a woman to, you know, give you her life for 30 shekels. Good luck. Like I said, the Bible is written allegorically. Anybody who thinks that that is a literal statement just doesn't understand Hebrew culture from that time period. It's called biblical exegesis or exegetical hermeneutics. There's like all kinds of fields of study. There's eisegetics, exegetics, or exegesis, eisegesis and exegesis. So you can look at the Bible and try www.biblehub.com if you are interested in actually understanding the Bible and not just having a moralist limited perspective. But otherwise, you know, good luck. All right, last comment, and I'm going to shut this down. All right, Exodus 21, verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go free as male slaves do. Hey, I have no problem with that because it's allegory. All right. All right, that's all I got to say about that. Don't beat yourself for being a cheater. Just don't be a cheater mentally, emotionally, spiritually. let the people that you're in relationship know beforehand, this is what my proclivities are, and be responsible for your intimacy needs. Thanks for watching.